Hello students. In this chapter we are going to talk about environment and sustainable development. This chapter is divided in three parts. The first part talks about environment, second part discuss India's environment condition, and third part focus on sustainable development. So let's start the first part with the basic question, what is environment? Environment is defined as the total planetary inheritance and totality of all resources present around us. There are two components of environment, that is biotic, which means all living element, and abiotic, which means all non-living elements. Example of biotic components are birds, animals, plants, and abiotic components include rock, sunlight, air, and so on. Now, what are the functions of environment? Environment perform four basic functions. The first and foremost being it supplies renewable and non-renewable resources which are necessary for production and consumption activities. During production and consumption, a lot of waste is generated which is assimilated by the environment. Environment also sustains life by providing genetic and biodiversity. It also provides aesthetic and beauty services like scenery, etc. However, environment can perform these functions without any disturbance if these functions are carried within the carrying capacity. Now, what do we mean by carrying capacity? Let's try to understand with the help of an imaginary example. Let's assume there is a bag full of candies. The rule says if you will take out the candy, then it will be replenished in the bag only after 5 days. Also, all candy wrappers are to be kept in the bag itself, and the bag will be cleaned only after 5 days. So now imagine that you take out all candies out from the bag within 2 days. What will happen? In that scenario, the bag will be full with only wrappers and it will run out of candies. Such is the condition of our environment. That is, if we will keep extracting resources from earth at a rate which is more than the rate of regeneration, and since we know that a lot of pollution is created during production and consumption, therefore our environment fails to perform basic functions as they are not carried within the carrying capacity. Thus, due to disturbance of the carrying capacity because of resource extraction being more than resource regeneration and waste generated beyond the assimilating capacity, we are at the threshold of environmental crisis. Rising population is the first and foremost reason behind environmental crisis. Many resources have become extinct. As already discussed, waste generated is beyond the absorptive capacity. We are at the threshold of environmental crisis. Rivers are drying up, pollution is everywhere, and underground water crisis is taking place. Thus, we can also say that opportunity cost of environmental degradation is very high. Now, what do we mean by this? Let's try to understand this again with the help of an example. Opportunity cost is the cost of next best alternative foregone. For example, if I have some rupees, I can either spend it on good X or on good Y. If I plan to spend it on good X, then what I forego is good Y, and that's the opportunity cost. Similarly, whatever resources are there with government has choice to spend those resources either on development or on correcting the damage caused to environment. When government has to spend resources on damage caused to environment, then it has to forego the developmental activity. Thus, opportunity cost of negative environmental damage is very high. Now, an important question. Are environmental problems new to this century? Yes. as in earlier times, supply of resources used to be more than demand. But now, due to increase in production and consumption, supply of resources has become less than the demand of resources. As a result, we are facing two important environmental issues, that is global warming and ozone depletion. Coming to the second part of chapter, State of India's Environment. India has abundant natural resources like lush green forest, rivers, deposit of iron ore, minerals, and so on. But India is facing many environmental issues such as land degradation, inappropriate management practices, biodiversity loss, air pollution, vehicular pollution, management of fresh water, solid waste management. In order to look after these environmental issues, government is taking some steps, but India's environmental issues pose a dichotomy. What do we mean by this? Dichotomy means that India's environmental problems are because of poverty as well as because of the affluent living standard. How? Because of poverty. We know that poor people don't have proper resources, due to which environmental degradation takes place. As we have seen that every year farmers burn their crop residual, which leads to a lot of smog and pollution. Whereas on the other hand, a lot of smoke is emitted from factories also. Thus, in India, environmental problems arise because of poverty, that is, lack of resources and alternative arrangements, and because of the affluent living standard and growing industrialization. Two pollution control boards, that is one at the center and the other one at the state level, has been set up to look after the pollution. Central Pollution Control Board has identified 17 categories of industries which are highly polluting. Now, coming to the third and most important part of the chapter, sustainable development. This concept was introduced by United Nations Conference of Environment and Development. I hope that you all are very well familiar with the meaning of sustainable development. It is the development that meets the need of present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. That is, it is the responsibility of present generation to hand over nature, Mother Earth, to future generation in a well-preserved form. Brundtland Commission has stressed three main points related to sustainable development. The first one being conservation of natural assets, second, preservation of regenerative capacity, and third, avoiding the imposition of additional cost on future generation. A famous environmentalist, Herman Dele, has also given 5 principles to promote sustainable development. First, keep a check on population growth. Second, use input efficient technological progress. Third, use renewable resources. Fourth, substitute non renewable resources. Fifth, keep a check on pollution. Keeping these 5 points in mind, India has also adopted some practices to promote sustainable development. These are as follows. Firstly, we should try to use non-conventional sources of energy. Secondly, mini hydle plants should be set up as they help in conserving water. Thirdly, we should resort to traditional practice and knowledge like Ayurveda. Fourthly, biocompost should be used instead of fertilizer in order to maintain the fertility of soil. Biopest control should be used instead of pesticides and insecticides. Solar power cells should be used to generate solar energy. LPG should be used in rural areas instead of burning the fuel. CNG should be used in urban areas. Pollution tax and fine should be imposed in order to keep a control on the pollution level. We are sure that in case we are going to adopt these strategies, we are going to achieve the goal of sustainable development. Thank you and have a good day.